Andy, how's the job?
Huh?
How's the job?
Busy.
Yeah.
Liking it?
Oh, yeah.
Looks like you can get on the freeway. Great.
Start work at 4:30. They do. But a contractor wants to get stuff done in a timely manner, so they're gonna work.
You salary then? That's nice. It works out good.
Exactly.
Okay, he didn't, I think we're okay.
It's doing stuff I've never done.
So we would ask our observer, how is it going now?
Yeah. Daniel?
And what are you doing? Testing concrete?
No, I'm
All right, so we've got, what do we got?
asphalt.
We went at 33, 36, I've got 2 minutes. We said recess for 5 minutes.
Stuff, making sure it's the right. HMA will go down, make sure the contract is out. And at the end of the project, paying everything.
I'll mute the,
Gauge Monkey!
I haven't been lately.
You haven't been Gauge Monkey?
Nope.
Are you Slump Monkey?
We got a new kid.
He can swing that gauge.
Yep. You know what I did do though?
But
I was like, yeah, we need a wagon instead of carrying this gauge around. And they're like, no. I go, yeah. So I brought my wagon from home.
are you shitting me?
Yeah, my wagon I use for baseball. It's got big tires on it. Greatest thing in the world.
So what's this gauge?
The gauge, I'll explain it to you. The gauges get too hot after a while.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a bag of ice I throw the gauge on top of. Yeah. And Becky Spangle, you know, she's like the head Indian lady. She's like, that is a great idea.
I have
And Tim,
my voice.
who's my boss, is like, now I have to go to Costco and buy 3 of those things.
Now all your guys got to pull your little
I
get
do.
wagon.
Whenever you're ready.
I was so
All right.
proud of my wagon.
Gauges.
All right, so we are.
Nuclear tip on the end.
This sounds like a post-meeting discussion for you two because we're back from recess. So I think we have beat Mr. Shiwi's presentation dead. So let's move along to the utilities report from Mr. Erdahl.
Okay, mine's a lot shorter. All the water samples came back good this month. We took our annual nitrate samples at all the well sites, and they were all well below the state's MCL level. We installed a new meter box and lid at 10005 East Empire, because the old box was crumbling and the resident wanted it raised up a little bit for new landscaping. We got a new 2-inch meter installed at the new Starbucks, so they're ready to go whenever they need the water. And sewer, everything's good.
Any questions? Yes,
Looks
Mr.
like we have a little dig going on Liberty. Is that another water main leak or just a pavement repair? I got the white markings on the street there.
Oh, that's part of this patch.
There's some patches. I do have to do a asphalt approach where we did have our second water main break. I had to dig that lady's approach out, so that's on my patch list too to put back.
Any other questions? Thank you, Matt. So now we'll move to our planning report from Ms. Tanyo from Upward 7 Consulting.
Okay, so I'm just gonna highlight a few things on the report I prepared for you at the beginning of the month here. So the first item for the planning commission, meeting, on August 24th, the planning commission, or those that will be able to attend, will be with me at a Millwood Days, periodic update, booth. So, if council would like to join, we just need to notice it for a special meeting for you as well, but you're more than invited if you'd like. And that it is advertised as a special meeting for the planning commission. At their next meeting on August 28th, we will be hearing the Starbucks special sign permit. We had to have a hearing on that, because number one, they wanted electronic menu boards. And number two, they were gonna be over the, 42-inch, I believe it's 42-inch height. And so they have to hear a special sign permit on it. We're gonna have the draft Millwood Community Survey for the periodic update reviewed. And then what we just added is a hearing on a zoning text amendment, 2024-02, This was something I very quickly crafted in response to the planning commission's concern that we wouldn't be able to do any of the housekeeping items till the end of the periodic update as I go through and do the development regulations. And specifically, it came out of the Magnolia Village staff report where I highlighted some of the main deficiencies in the code, I guess we'll say. And I quickly looked through our code to see if there was an easy temporary fix for this and found one. The zoning section of the municipal code has an adoption by reference section that it appears Christina added in 2022. And it references Spokane County stormwater and landscaping regulations. So if the Millwood Municipal Code lacks anything in those realms, we can defer to the county code for that. So I just made a simple addition to include their parking and driveway standards. So that would adopt by reference the Spokane County parking and driveway standards for the design widths of driveways for parking stalls, which I believe theirs are 8.5 by 18, I think. It's been a while since I looked real in depth at it. And it also adds in a section that I had listed as an itemized item, and that is bike racks. So we'd be able to have commercial structures with bike racks. So I figured that was a pretty easy fix. Ran it through the non-project SEPA, and it's going to hearing with the Planning Commission on the 28th. We have our first use of the JARPA process for the shoreline potential development permits or exemptions. It was right on the line of 8423 South Riverway. I have been working through the shoreline permit application for that. A JARPA form has been submitted along with the SEPA checklist, and we'll begin the processing of that this week. And so we'll see if that simplifies those a little bit. And then 10423 East Trent, a business called A1 Towing, has made application with the Washington State Department of Revenue for a vehicle transport / disposal certification and approval through Form 700-183 for a registered tow truck operator or hulk hauler review certification. That's a long thing. Basically, what I have to do as the city planner is review the site and determine if the site is in compliance with all applicable land use regulations. At this time, it is not. I cannot sign the form. The two that were very obvious, it's not paved and there are no landscaping between that site and the residential zone. There's others I know, but those are the two that were obvious on an initial investigation. So we'll be working through that. And then finally, I will also be taking a vacation the last week of August. However, because of our very tight work plan, I will be covering the August 28th Planning Commission meeting from the coast, and that way we will stay on the work plan. Are there any questions on the report?
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. So that brings us to item 10E, our legal report from Mr. Worst from Witherspoon, please.
Yeah, I have nothing further to add other than what's been on the agenda tonight. Happy to answer any questions or thoughts you might have.
Questions from Brian? Thank you. So that leads us to the mayor's report. Status update, which really more is just a question. Motorized personal transport devices, Lime scooters, we kind of talked about that. Is there any interest from the council in continuing to bring forward or bringing forward a regulation or something that regulates those in the code as something in the city?
I would say yes, just because they're getting dropped off in the neighborhoods and people's yards, basically, in the corners.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, so we will work forward on that. I will work.
They seem to multiply.
Yes.
We had one in the corner, next thing I know, there's three in the corner.
So I will work with legal
Lord.
on developing that. A couple other things. First, with the approval of the settlement for a condemnation, that is the last piece of real estate that needed to be acquired for the Argonne project, which means now after 5 years, 6 years, 2016, yeah, that the project is go. So the city has been ready and prepared. And so, Lisa, would you bring up? We have a project website that is live and will be rolled out for the Argonne Road Corridors project. We will be sending out notices and getting that out that this is up, and we will be hosting public meetings beginning. We're targeting, and this is kind of, because it's tight time frame and it is summer and people are taking vacation, we're looking for our first public open house on the project on August the 29th. There'll be another one September the 5th, and then there'll be a third one September the 19th. That's our tentative. Now, if we need to push those around to accommodate folks, we're looking at Thursday at 6 p.m. But if we're finding we're not getting attendance because people can't get there, we will move those times to try and accommodate. We want to get as many folks in as we can, but we'll be rolling this out to the general public, sending out flyers, sending out notices that this is live, sending out stuff. We have drawing boards. There's all sorts of great stuff that goes along with the design, timeline, everything like that. I'm not going to have Lisa go into it now. But we will be publicizing this. It is or will be a link on the Millwood homepage, and so we'll be able to access it from the City Millwood webpage. All those good things. One thing that, just because in my real job, I'm a hydrogeologist, things like that, we've received some comments or concerns from folks regarding a potential for wholesale of our water. And I'm not gonna, the letter that we received from the Millwood Neighborhood Advocates Group is attached to this as a public comment. I do want to take 1 second and just in front of the meeting and everything, make a point. The letter states that, uses the term Millwood's water. It's important to understand that in the state of Washington and many other western states, we live by a water doctrine called prior appropriation. What that means is basically first in time, first in right. But more importantly, the waters of the state belong to the state. Millwood doesn't own the water that is underneath it. It's not Millwood's water, it's the state's water. What we have is a right to use that water for a beneficial use at a time and place. That with Millwood's rights, because they are municipal rights, not irrigation rights, not domestic rights, not livestock, things like that. Those rights are a little different than other rights because the intent of those rights is not only to serve the population that exists in the municipality at the time, but a population that would develop in the future. A key point of that, and then we're getting late in the meeting, is that regarding rights, water rights, you have a right to beneficially use an X amount of water. If you don't use that water, you lose the right to that water. So it is important that we consider putting water to use in order to maintain our right to use it. We have had, there is talk that Millwood might look at wholesaling. It's council's decision, but I will be bringing to council at some point in the very near future, maybe not next meeting, but the following meeting or something like that, an ordinance that will allow wholesale sales of water to other purveyors adjacent or in the area that Millwood could deliver water to those. Water is necessary in order to achieve the growth that is envisioned for this area. People are gonna come here, water supplies are what they are, and you have the ability only to supply the water that you have the right to supply it to, that you have the right to supply. So that will be a discussion for the council, but it is important to note, one, It's not our water. It's a right to the water. And if we don't use the rights that we have the potential, the very real potential of not keeping those rights. Those rights can be taken away by the state if they feel that there is a different need for those rights. And so we can have our rights amended, particularly in this area, if we go through a process known as adjudication, where the Washington State Department of Ecology comes in and does what's called truing. They look at the rights, all the rights in time, from the very beginning of rights, all the way back to the Native American claims on water, all the way to current, and they look at each right and decide if it's being put to beneficial use, if it's still an active right, if it's being overused, if it's being overdrawn, anything like that. That's going to be necessary here in this area, because the only way that we could, as Washingtonians, ever make a claim to what would be considered our share of the Rathrum Prairie aquifer water is if we are adjudicated because Idaho is adjudicated. And the only way you can make an interstate claim on water is if both entities are adjudicated. If they can show to the federal court that, yes, we know how much water we're using, we know how much water we have right to, this is what we say. Idaho's already done that. And Idaho continues to expand. Idaho is sticking straws in the ground everywhere over there. And if we want to, as Washingtonians, preserve our portion of the aquifer, we're going to need to adjudicate here. So it's just some things to think about, but that is, I understand the feelings, but it is important to understand that we don't own water. We have a right to use water. And that ends, one last thing on a more happier note. At the next meeting, Sheriff Kittlestaff will be here. One of the things that Sheriff Kittlestaff would like to hear from this council is some ideas on what they are thinking for the way that you would like the actual enforcement officer timing to be structured. What they'd like to understand is working within the parameters of 4 10-hour days, because in talking to Sheriff Kittlestaff, that is more of a union time issue and would be very hard to dictate. That's something we can't dictate. It's part of the deputy's contracts, sorts of things. But in those 410s, what are we thinking? You've all had the sheriff's incident reports where you get the heat maps, when certain issues are coming. He's looking for ideas on, do we want law enforcement, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Do we want it through the weekend? Do we want it on the swing shift? Do we want it do we want from morning for 10 hours beginning 8 a.m. into 6 or 7 p.m.? Do we want ideas of, do we want to have somebody come on in the afternoon and stay through into the night, sort of thing? So he would like to hear that, because he's actually very eager to advertise this position, because he feels like he's going to get some pretty good interest in having a dedicated deputy for City of Millwood. So, and we're already looking at, he's already asked us to start getting graphics and stuff so we can livery a sheriff's car with proudly serving City of Millwood sort of thing. So Sheriff's Office is very excited about this, and so some good thinking on this, because Sheriff Kittlestaff will be here to hear these inputs from you and get some ideas on what he can take back to advertise for this position. Yes?
Can I ask a question about the water thing that you just said?
Yeah.
So when you bring the ordinance, though, we're still going to do a 2-touch, because that's not going to be just a, hey, this is
No.
it, and you heard me say, these are the rules, so.
No, the rules are, no. The rules are how the water is. Wholesaling, the ordinance allows us to wholesale. Yes, there'd be 2-touch. There's nothing pressing right now.
Well, that's what I wanted to
We
hear.
have had interest from adjacent purveyors, particularly the Urban Water District, because they have water supply issues with respect to their paper, what they have for right. And they are looking for assistance in providing water to their purveyor district. It takes a while to do this sort of planning if you are going to wholesale water to a different purveyor jurisdiction.
I was only asking because, and I understand the timeliness of the couple things that we have not two-touched, but there have been a fair amount of non-two-touch things. And you had framed, and we never got back to me when we broke, I was
Oh, I'm sorry.
sentence saying that, one of your things was, I want you guys to back up. If we make a decision, you gotta back it up. And that's true. But sometimes these decisions just come bam, 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 and now it's just a foregone conclusion. You can't back out of it. I'm arguing for, in traffic and a lot of things moving forward, for us to really cling to these two-touch things. Give people a chance to think about some of these things that are not time sensitive, which I understand, like the interlocal agreement that we just agreed today was, but I feel like there's just this constant, like, let's get these things through, but then we didn't how did we co-own that if we haven't had a chance to think about it or reflect on the documentation that wasn't given until day of?
I would stand behind that the only things so far that I've asked for a single touch on are things that are time sensitive.
Understood, but I wanna make sure the water thing didn't end up because this
The
is.
water's not time sensitive. And I would say this, the gentleman who was here from Ken I very much probably would have liked to have this thing signed tonight. Because they're ready to go, they want a feed piece installed, but it was not something that somebody was going to just get. Nobody was going to lose a limb if it wasn't signed tonight. So that went through the two-touch. If we are asking for one touch, it is because we have a time-sensitive issue. And as I said, many jurisdictions who handle this level of work have bi-monthly meetings. And that's always an option for this group. If you wanna have, if you are really worried about having two touches, it's easy to go to 2 meetings a month.
I just wanted the clarification that the water ordinance was not a time-sensitive thing.
It is not
and that
time-
there would be a process.
Yeah, there will be, and it's not a time-sensitive
Can you
issue.
lease water rights? I love that look.
I mean,
Would you
there's
like
good
to go get a snack?
Oh yeah, we'll discuss it later.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one question I have is I would like to know the precedence of once someone has wholesaled their water rights, how does that affect the future adjudication
No,
process?
you're not
that we know.
You're not wholesaling your right. You're wholesaling water.
I know, but I do know the because I spend a lot of time on the west side of the state. We will have this adjudication process.
Oh, you're gonna, yes.
And I would like to know the precedence of how does a group that has wholesaled or however you're putting it impact that.
So what I will say is that I will be happy, and I am not a water rights attorney, water law attorney. I have a similar, first, for full and transparency, I am a member of the Spokane Water Conservancy Board. So we do have power to, and not as the mayor of Millwood, but as Kevin Freeman, hydrogeologist.
Yeah.
We do review water right changes, things like that, in that conservancy board because we have kind of like designated powers from ecology. If water law is of an interest, we can get some folks in here to talk water law and things like that. It kind of is, to your question, if the beneficial use is proven, which is you have to prove that you are using your papered allotment of both your annual quantity and your discharge. So on the certificate it says QI and QA. QA is the volume you can take, and QI is the instantaneous amount that you can draw it at. If you can demonstrate and have the records that you have been putting that to use, then you are certificated for that water. You have different types of rights based on where you are in the process of proving that you are putting that water to beneficial use. Additionally, municipalities have what's called inchoate rights, which is where those rights at this present time cannot be lost by not putting them to beneficial use because they are thought to be potentially for future use. The city of Millwood would be an entity that would not have the ability to put the full amount of their certificated rights to beneficial use in its current capacity because we have no room for growth. We are surrounded on all sides by other purveyors, and those purveyors are hamstrung by the amount of paper they have. So it is, but we can't relinquish an inchoate right to a different provider because water right transfers of inchoate rights in the state of Washington are not allowed. Did that help?
My point was, is you just
I'm
made
actually
this
more
argument
confused now.
based off of the premise that if we don't use it, we lose it, and I would just merely say, well, then let's figure, I mean, if we're gonna propose it, let's see all those things to their logical end. Is that gonna affect the future adjudication, because you mentioned that in support. I'm not saying we need to answer it today, and you've already indicated perhaps the right people aren't necessarily even here.
I would
I'm
agree.
just saying, there's much more thoughtful discussion that needs to take place.
Yes, and what I would say is there will be 2 touches on it when it does come, but we have had enough requests from other purveyors that it needs to be considered by this body, as you are not only the council, but you also run the utilities of the city of Millwood. And so you're the board of directors for the utilities, and therefore you have these decisions to make for that as well.
On the 2-touch, if something comes to you and it's 1-touch, you still have the option of forcing it to 2-touch. We can call a special meeting, you can delay it, it might have ramifications, but, I mean, the 1-touch, if it comes to you as a recommendation by the administrative staff, you might have more than 2 touches on this ordinance, right? So, I think that's, the council made it clear that they wanted an opportunity for things to be reviewed and analyzed. If something's coming to you and we're asking you to adopt it on a 1-touch, it's up to you to say, we're not ready for it. That's your role.
I would say though that staff really tries to make sure and ensure that if we're bringing something to you and it's thrown on there as a 1-touch, there is a good reason why, and it's typically usually something to do with we have a time deadline that it needs to be considered, so. All right, so we have, any other questions for me? I've talked enough. So council information, we have nothing in the council information packet. We did today get the sheriff's report. We will distribute that to you by email so you can have that. Public remarks, that brings us to item number 12, our public remarks. Our public remarks are an opportunity for citizens to address the council. We ask that people limit themselves to 2 minutes and follow our participation guidelines. We did receive 1 written comment, which is in the packet, which is the letter from the Millwood Neighborhood Advocates. And we have 1 person signed up tonight, Doug Sadler. Mr. Sadler.
Thank you. Doug Sadler, 8612 East Bridgeport. I was looking at last week's agenda, and under the first touch, there was an 8A item for the West Valley Education Foundation special permit, but it didn't come back this month.
That was withdrawn. That request was withdrawn by West Valley.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that is the only person we have signed in. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Second call, Shereen, you want?
Shereen Young at 8903 East Liberty, and also for